Welcome back to the channel and thank you for watching, and please do consider hitting that like button and subscribe button at any point you feel during this video. So in this video I'm going to talk about Incident 14, which you will all remember as being when Officer Sines and Officer Haddon were called to the penthouse. There was allegations of broken furniture, broken bottles and a phone allegedly thrown at Amber's face. It's also the incident which gave rise to two photographs where there was extensive cross-examination of these two photographs being edited in software, so I'm going to look at that as well. I'm going to look at what a photographer says about it, trying to get these two the same, what one of the experts says about the metadata or the EXIF data in the back end for the photograph to show whether or not it looks like this photograph was edited or several photographs were edited. I'm also going to compare what the judge in the UK trial said about this incident, how he came to those conclusions, and why I respectfully disagree with the learned judge and my reasons for that. And also looking at the testimony from Officer Sines in the UK trial, which also, as it happens, exposes yet another lie from Amber Heard on the stand in the US trial. So first of all, let's turn to the judgment itself and look at where the incident is described. Now, just very briefly, without going into too much detail about this, because everybody will know this detail by now, the pertinent bits are here. The claimant, obviously being Johnny Depp in this case, came back down the stairs, grabbed the phone, and this time threw it at Miss Heard, striking her cheek and eye. She sustained an injury to her right eye. Now, this is obviously the defendant's account, which is the newspaper, and Dan Wootton in defense of this defamation claim in the UK trial. And a little bit further down, they also say that he picked up a Magnum-sized bottle, began drinking out of it, swinging it around, smashing everything he could. So obviously, in that respect, talking about smashing up bottles, smashing up furniture, all of which was contradicted in other evidence. So moving back to this judgment and looking at what the response to all of this was, the claimant, i.e. Johnny Depp's reply is at the re-amended reply, which is in reply to the defense. It was a re-amended reply to the defense, and ultimately disputes this evidence, saying that he tossed the phone onto the sofa, crossed the room away from Miss Heard towards the kitchen, which was some 20 feet away, who was sitting on the sofa. He did not scream profanity or insults, did not storm upstairs or come back down and grab the phone for a second time. The phone did not hit Miss Heard in the face or elsewhere. Now, moving first of all to the conclusions on this incident so that it will all make sense. This is at least the judge's findings and conclusion in respect of this incident in the UK trial. Now, first of note, the judge does make a stark point that the conflict in evidence is particularly sharp in this incident. Notably, the judge refers to the photographs and says the metadata is not disputed. However, of course, there was much discussion about the metadata in the US trial. Clearly, it had been looked into a great more detail there, or just hadn't been looked at in this amount of detail in the UK trial. But that we'll come back to a little bit later. Moving back to the judgment and the judge's findings, moving on to the next paragraph here. This is where I really take some kind of issue with the findings in this judgment for reasons that I'll make very clear with all respect to the learned judge. The judge here says, I appreciate the photographs were taken in different lighting conditions, and that is a good reason why what can be seen differs from one another. I do not agree with the submission that they are valueless as evidence of Miss Heard suffering some injury to her face. They clearly show at least some reddening to her cheek. Now, of course, considering that Officer Sines had said in her evidence, which I will come to in a minute, that she did not see any injury on Amber Heard and she did not see any reddening to the cheek. That is in contrast with these photographs as it is, because these photographs were said to be showing injury. However, the discrepancy in these photographs, which I'll turn to now because this is a good point to look at this bit of evidence, the photographs were said to be manipulated, edited, and had the saturation altered so that it looked more red to show that there was some kind of injury to her face. Now, there are two reasons why this actually, in my view, contradicts the findings of the judge in the UK case, because ultimately the judge in this case said that I appreciate the photographs were taken in different lighting conditions. That's a good reason why what can be seen differs from one to another. But I, with all respect, disagree with that finding, and I'm going to highlight the evidence in the US trial and some from a photographer as to why I disagree with that. So turning first to the photographer that I mentioned, this is Landy is Candy. He's only got 932 subscribers. Let's get him at least to 1,000, guys, because this guy is doing all of us a service here. So just taking a small clip of his video, I hope he won't mind, just to show you how he makes these two photographs identical and look exactly the same with just one small tweak, which I respectfully suggest is probably what happened in this trial. So let's take a look at what Landy has to say about these two photographs.
Certain sources that light reflects off of to determine if it's the same photo or not. Skin is actually not the best determinant of this. Jewelry is a really good one because metal reflects light and picks up little discrepancies in the angle of light reflected much better than skin does. Looking at her earrings and at her necklace, it doesn't appear any variation in the way that light is reflected. Looking at an image overlay and looking at two images side by side, you're basically looking for the same things. You're looking for any discrepancy in the pictures, and let's see if we can make them look the same. Before I start to make them look the same, it is important to point out that this photo was taken in 2016 with, I believe, a smartphone. White balance is one of those things that is actually one of the most likely things to be inaccurately represented in a photo. White balance, especially under artificial lighting, can change. Although by 2016, most smartphones have worked out white balance to quite a good degree. The reality of what her face looks like may be somewhere in between these two photos. We don't know for certain. So first thing I notice is that second photo is more saturated. So we're gonna turn up the level. I think that did it. I think that's all it took. 55% saturation. All right. I thought I was gonna have to do more work. I'm almost spot on. All right. They appear to be very identical.
So there you have it. Just an increase in the saturation on the one photograph made it exactly the same as the other. Not, as the judge described here, with all respect, that the photographs were taken in different lighting conditions and being a good reason why what can be seen differs from one to another. Now, as I've said in previous videos, I am not a judge, but I prefer the evidence of this photographer. But not just for that reason, but also because I've seen other evidence from the experts in the US trial which also convinced me that that is more reliable than just different lighting. So now moving to the expert evidence on this issue, just playing a very short clip of this, you can see what he says about the metadata in respect of the photograph. And in short, what he says, which you'll hear in a moment, is that the metadata would show the version number of the phone software rather than photo 3, which is essentially the photo editing software. Let's see what the expert has to say. Listen to this.
And again, this is just a few lines, and the reason I put these in there was just to explain a bit what EXIF data is. The actual thing I'm trying to point out is the fact that instead of an operating system, it shows the editing program that was used on this photo. And instead, where it says software on a normal iPhone photo, it would, instead of saying photos 3, it would say the software version, for example, 9.3.1.
So there you have it. You've got photo 3, which suggests it's been edited in photo version 3, as opposed to the version number of the iPhone software. So that is a further reason why I accept that these photographs had been edited and the saturation increased to show reddening. But not only that, when you look at the two photographs side by side, it seems quite clear to me that someone could not have taken two photographs with every strand of hair in exactly the same place whilst turning on the light on in between the two photographs. That just seems quite ridiculous to me. But now, as promised, the additional lie, in my view, from what Amber says in her evidence in the US trial, comparing with what Officer Sines actually testified for the UK trial, because I've read her evidence that was submitted for the UK trial, and she was quizzed about it by Camille Vasquez in the US trial. So have a look at this, and then I'll show you what Officer Sines actually said in the US testimony.
Is it your testimony under oath now that Officer Sines testified that she saw injuries on you when she saw you in person on May 21?
Sorry, let me clarify. I was testifying that I know that that's what Officer Sines said, that she didn't consider my red puffy face injured. That's what she said.
The red puffy face, that was your counsel's question, correct?
That was her testimony in the UK.
That's incorrect, and you know that, Ms. Heard.
I disagree.
And so you heard exactly what Amber just said. She says that Officer Sines saw reddening but didn't consider it to be an injury. However, let's have a look at what Officer Sines actually said in her deposition, which I've read the transcript for. Here are some relevant portions of that. So now, bearing in mind that Officer Sines has been introduced to the situation, recalling when she attended the penthouse and had a conversation with Amber Heard and being asked questions about any signs of injury. And remember, she had 2 opportunities to see her. This was the first. So the question here was, at any time during that conversation, did she say that she'd been struck with any object or hit by any person? Officer Sines says no, she did not. Next question, okay, and did she say that she'd been in any other way by any other human being? Answer, no, she did not. Next question, did you see at any time in your inspection of the premises broken glass? She said, no, I did not. At any time in the inspection of the premises, did you see spilled wine? No, I did not. At any time during the inspection of the premises, did you see broken bottles? No, I did not. Officer Sines says, at any time during your inspection of the premises, did you see broken pictures or glass or picture frames? No, I did not. Did you see any signs of vandalism to any of the property that's in the location? No, I did not. Did you see any broken glass of any kind? No, I did not. Bottles on the floor, broken or unbroken? No, I did not. And then asked the pertinent question as to whether she had the opportunity to observe Miss Heard so as to be able to see any injuries to her face. And so remembering that there were 2 occasions when Officer Sines saw Amber Heard, she was asked on each of those occasions, did she see any marks of any kind on Amber's face? Answer, no, I did not. Question, did you see any signs of swelling or injury to her face at all? Answer, no, I did not. Did you see any bruises or marks under either eye? No, I did not. Did you see any bruises or marks of any kind on her cheeks? Answer, no, I did not. And then talking about the second opportunity that she had to look at Amber's face. Question, is it true to say that you had an opportunity to observe her face a second time when you encountered her? Yes, I did. At this point, were there any signs on her face that you could see that she had any injury to her face? Answer, there were no signs of injury. Did you see any red marks of any kind under either eye on her face? Answer, no, I did not. Did you see any bruising on her face? I did not. Did you see any swelling of any kind on her face? I did not. Now, remembering that this deposition was on July 18th, 2016, so not very long after the event. However, remembering that the judge in the UK trial said that whilst he accepted that the views he reached are in conflict with the evidence of Officer Sines and Officer Haddon, he maintained them nonetheless, and then went on to say that it's notable that the officers took no contemporaneous notes. However, remember that the body-worn cam footage did surface, which was as contemporaneous as that might get, which probably explains, in my view, why no written notes were taken, because after all, they said nothing really happened, they were called out and then left, and their body-worn footage would have recorded everything, so they didn't bother to make any notes. Perhaps they should have done, but in my view, it didn't make any difference. But then here, the judge says Officer Sines did observe reddening on Miss Heard's cheek, although attributed this to her crying, and an ambiguity remains. But actually, in my view, that is in stark contrast to the deposition that she gave, when she was quite clear that there were no marks, no reddening, no signs of injury of any kind. So taken together with the evidence behind the EXIF data on the photographs, showing that they were edited with photo, and the saturation makes the 2 photographs look identical, overall, I can see why the jury took all this evidence as being persuasive that this simply didn't happen. So all in all, without going through every section of that judgment and this incident in detail, these few bits alone allow me to conclude, and clearly allowed the jury to conclude, that this was a fabricated event and simply didn't happen. So as always, I'd appreciate your thoughts and comments in the section below. If there's anything in addition to this that you want me to look at in respect of this incident or any other incident, please do let me know. Please do remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you've not already done so. And as always, thank you very much for watching.